Making your way through work Monday takes everything you got. Then Monday night rolls around and you realize there's a shot. You're only 10 points away. All those times when your team had no fight, they're just so gosh darn frail. Then your star quarterback let another deep ball sail, and your third round pick bet on his team. Then go check out our streets where everybody knows your pain, and they listen to complaints. You wanna be where you can see our bodies bring you no shame. You wanna go where everybody knows your pain.
Welcome into another edition of the Dad Bod Fantasy Squad. I'm Rob, and I'm here with the one and only Mr. Alex. What's up, brother? How you doing, man?
Hey, buddy. Not too
Been a
bad,
while.
man.
Been a while since
it's been
we've
a little
on.
bit.
Yeah, let's get back to our roots, dude.
Yeah.
We used to always do the 1-2s.
Yeah, I'll say that was most of last year and starting off this year.
Yeah. We got to get back to it. We got to get back. Oh, Jesus, Mario. Mario coming in strong with some interesting language, everybody.
He would go to buttholes because that's above eye level for him when he's walking. So that's what
he's just used to it, you know.
Buttholes.
Well, we're about the same height, so I can't talk too much. But we got a fun episode for you guys today. We are doing some more divisional talk. We're getting into the NFC West. We're going to preview that for you guys, getting into some NFL news. And I got a little guess that player for Alex. Let's see if he can figure out a couple players that I put down, and see if he could figure out who we got coming up. So we got a jam-packed episode, so we're going to kind of jump right into it. Let's get into the NFL news for the day. Still kind of a quiet time, but there's some stuff starting to come out. There's an interview today. Deshaun Watson says that he's going to have some really good chemistry with Cooper. I guess they've been working a ton in the offseason, and he likes what he's seen. They're starting to sync up. So do you buy into this, or is it just kind of quarterback talk?
No, 100% buy into it. That's why I have Amari Cooper as like my wide receiver 5.
Yeah, I'm into. I think this is kind of what Deshaun Watson needed. Is it a full offseason with the ability to kind of work with his players, and if they can get that chemistry, how Deshaun usually does with one receiver. He usually has some really good chemistry with like one of his main receiver, and that main receiver always puts up huge numbers. And that's why I'm with you, Alex. I think we're the two high guys on Amari Cooper this season. I have him at wide receiver 11. I think you're 9. And I don't think this is smoke. I think this is real talk. And I hope he's right.
I mean, I don't think with Deshaun, when he's played 15 games and his number one receivers played at least 15 games, that wide receiver 1 was top 5 every single year.
That's an interesting stat.
Yeah. Which obviously it's like D-Hop, like that's, but what I'm saying is like he's gonna get stupid targets. I expect people to kind of do a Will Fuller role, or he's just gonna be getting deep balls all day.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I'm with you. Albert, what's up, brother? A little bit more news. Barkley is contemplating sitting out the season opener if he can't get a deal done by that time. What are your thoughts? There's a lot of smoke. We're going to get into Jacobs next, but there's some serious talks coming out now between Barkley and Jacobs about sitting out. So it's interesting to me that we're only hearing that he's going to sit out the first game. To me, it's like you might as well just sign the contract and play the year out and then move on, or sign that franchise tag. But it's interesting that this is the talk coming out of New York now. What are your thoughts?
I mean, I think there's a decent chance that he ends up missing multiple games. I do
too.
I think it's very realistic. The contract they offered him was less than the franchise tag.
Yeah.
So
there's so many weird reports coming out about, especially with Barkley, like that they offered him a 2-year or a multiple year with like 13 million per year. And then he tweeted someone tweeted that out, and he commented on it with the little baseball caps, saying that they were lying. Then there's reports saying that he was offered like $19 million a year. Like, there's just so many random reports coming about all these offers. He's saying people are lying, that he was never offered big money. He's saying he doesn't want to reset the market for running backs. He just wants to get paid fairly. I don't know. It's weird, and I don't like it, but let's keep going with this trend. Josh Jacobs said he's not going to show up to training camp without a new deal. I'm kind of in the same boat with the Barkley talk. Like, I don't know if they can't figure deals out with these two running backs. I don't know where it's going to go, and I don't know how many games they're going to sit out, or, I mean, is it going to be a Le'Veon Bell situation where he just sits the whole season, which I don't think either will do, but it's just, there's a lot coming out now. It seems like these running backs are really trying to stick together and make a move.
Yeah, I think what's going to end up happening is Jacobs doesn't have the leverage Barkley does. He's got one season, but I really think that Saquon's missing multiple games. He knows, that he is the number one utilized tool in that offense, whereas the Raiders have Devontae Adams. They can get a running back.
That's fair, but like, short of signing Dalvin Cook, like, they'd have to go get Dalvin Cook. Who's there? Ezekiel Elliott, and that, like, the thing with these two running backs, especially these two that we're talking about, there's nobody behind them. There's no running backs behind these two. So if they sit out, like, they're going to run out with Zamir White. Yeah. And I don't even know who's the Giants back. They got a rookie this season.
Yeah, they got a decent rookie.
But it's just like, well, you're going to run these guys out. And these are two teams that are, I don't know what the expectations are really for the Raiders, especially with the Jimmy G stuff. But I think they both have expectations of making the playoffs, especially the Giants. Yeah. So, like, you would assume these teams are really trying to get stuff done, and it seems like it just is weird. The whole situation is weird. You think they would try to get these guys locked up. They're both still young enough. They both have proven that they're good running backs. You don't think?
I think Saquon deserves top 5 running back money, but Jacobs 100%. Has had 1 year, and that's it. I mean, they didn't sign his 5th year tender because they were like, we haven't seen enough, and they have 1 year.
Up. Yeah, they messed
that for up. Sure they did, but it could have been the same situation. Going into the 5th year, he could have sat there and said, like, I want to get paid, I want an extension.
Yeah, that's true. I think Jacobs has done enough to warrant a good enough second contract. Like, I'm not talking Barkley money. I don't think he deserves, and I don't know what he's asking for. So right. if Jacobs is asking for top 5 running back money, sure, like, there's a conversation to be had. Like, all right, dude, you're playing out of you're trying to get paid for more than what you're worth. But if he's asking for, like, top 10, like, I think he deserves the top 10 running back contract. I think he carries the ball 330 times a season. Like, he is that focal point running back on that team and we know the shelf life on these. Like, it makes sense. He sees it. He's like, I'm getting 300 touches a season. You guys are beat me to the ground. Like, let me get my money first.
Yeah, I get where he's coming from, and I get where the Raiders are coming from at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's fair. And then Kyler is looking to return for week 1. That's kind of there was I don't know if it was an interview or just a quote that he said that he says he thinks he's going to be ready for week 1. Do you think this is smoke? Do you think this is realistic? There are some cool stats on quarterbacks coming off ACLs that most of the time they're back within 10 months, which this would be like right on 10 months. So it might be a little aggressive, but at the same time, if he's looking to be back for week 1, I don't know how much longer he'll miss than like maybe the first month of the season.
Yeah, I was saying at most, I think he misses 4 games.
Which is good for Kyler shares. I mean, you can get him so cheap right now, especially in like best ball, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Maybe your team is kind of sleeping on news if you guys are doing a redraft. and he slips far enough where, like, yeah, I'm willing to take a gamble on him
for sure.
as your backup quarterback. Like,
yeah, the dude is. I mean, with Kyler, I've never had a huge worry about like, well, if his legs, slow down a little bit, like what happens? And it's like his downside if his legs aren't as great as Bryce Young. And Bryce Young was the first quarterback picked in this draft. Kyler Murray can throw the ball better than any of the quarterbacks that were drafted this year.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think he's the way a lot of people view Kyler is like he's just such a good runner that they forget how good of a passer he really is.
Yeah, phenomenal.
And I'm with you on that. Like, there's a lot of people are talking, especially for fantasy football. They're like, yeah, Kyler Murray might be back week 1, week 2, but he's not going to be running like he was. Well, at the same time, like, he can still be a top 10 quarterback just throwing. Like, he doesn't 100%. Need to run.
Yeah, I agree.
And I'm with you. Like, I think it's something to keep note of. And we're going to get into Kyler a little later since the Cards are in the NFC West. So there will be some more talk on Kyler. But first, guess that player. Dun, 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 dun.
Is that Charizard?
I need a drop for that. I need somebody to make me a drop for guess that player. Let's get into it, dude. So, what? Well, that son of a bitch. Did you see that?
Yes.
Oh, no. Okay. So,
I didn't.
I'm trying to think how I can do this. All right, you talk amongst yourself. Keep going on Kyler.
Keep going on Kyler. I think realistically the Cardinals can't be worse than they were last year. Are you ready?
We're back.
Oh
we're back, and I'm just going to tell you the players without the pictures. I hope you didn't see who they were, but we're going to get into it anyways. Player A is a wide receiver with late first-round draft capital, 25 years old. In 2022 points per game, 13.4, good for wide receiver 23. 2022 target share, 23.5%, wide receiver 23. 2022 PFF receiving grade, 80.9, which is wide receiver 18. Yards per route run, 2.09, wide receiver 24. And a fun fact for you, his favorite food is shrimp scampi.
Shrimp scrappy.
It's a tongue twister, dude. It's a tongue twister.
Sounds like getting diarrhea from a seafood buffet.
Nothing like it. Player B, wide receiver with a late first-round draft capital, 26 years old. Points per game, 13. Wide receiver, 27 and 22. 2022 target share, 23.7%. Wide receiver, 22. 2022 air yard share, 32.3%. Wide receiver, 17. Yards per route run was only 1.57. Good for wide receiver 54 last season. And then another fun fact, he worked at Six Flags while in JUCO to make ends meet. So out of these two players, looking just at the stats, who are you taking for let's go with redraft. Who are you picking this season for redraft?
These are always hard. If I'm just basing off the numbers and not me thinking who they are, I'm going player A.
Player A, just based off of
what I'm seeing.
The numbers, Mr. Shrimp Scampi. Yeah. Okay. Do we have any guesses for these players?
I think
feel free to comment in the comments, send them out if you got any idea of who you think they are, if you did not see the photos as they popped up first.
You want me to answer?
Go ahead. Yeah, take your guess.
I think player A is Ayuk.
Okay. Player B?
Player B, Hollywood Brown.
Does anyone have any guesses in the comments before I give the answers away? Mario, I know you're sitting around doing nothing. You got any good guesses for me?
He's probably got a Ninja Turtle up his butthole.
There's a lot of butthole talk today.
Hey, he started it.
A lot of butthole talk today. And let's get to it. Alex, you were 100% correct on both of these players. It is player A, Brandon Ayuk, and player B is Marquise Hollywood Brown. I found it interesting. I definitely did. I thought the one thing I saw that kind of jumped out to me was just Marquise Brown's yards per route run at 1.57. I thought it'd be a lot higher than that because he seems like that deep ball kind of threat. But he's proven that he doesn't have to be that.
And last year it was hard to like kind of evaluate what this year is going to be for Hollywood Brown based off of quarterback change because of injury, offense change. So it's kind of like,
coming in midway through the season. There was so much going on at that team.
D-Hop being gone,
people getting fired.
Right, it's going to be like that's why I'm like, if I'm looking at stats, I'm like, hey, I'm taking player A just because of like the numbers look better, but player B's target share is going to go up. His yards per route is going to go up. Like a lot of things are going to go up just because he's the guy now.
Yeah, and we will get into that since we are talking NFC West. Fun division. We got San Fran, Arizona, LA Rams, and the Seattle Seahawks. It's a fun one. There's a lot of good fantasy football players in this division.
I agree.
It's a loaded division for fantasy football specifically, so it's a fun one to kind of get into. So we're gonna start with the 49ers. And as we know, this quarterback room is kind of a mess right now, especially with Brock Purdy coming off of that injury. Do you see any of these as like has the lead right now? If Purdy is, I mean, obviously Purdy kind of has that lead coming into it.
He for sure does.
But say there's, he comes in slow off training camp. Trey Lance kind of has a good start to training camp. Are either of these two? How do you view these two for other positions on this team? Like, do you want one in instead of the other? Are you taking either of these for your fantasy football team?
Man, to be honest, I don't really want either of them on my fantasy football team. I think Lance, fantasy-wise, has a higher ceiling. But if you have anybody besides CMC on the Niners, you want Purdy as a quarterback. I think there's a 0% chance Trey Lance starts a game unless Purdy's out. And news just came out like an hour ago that the Falcons rumored to offer a second-round pick for Trey Lance. So
I see something about that. So
my guess was that Lance ends up getting traded at some point during the season. I just don't see him starting a game. I think they're more comfortable starting Sam Darnold at this point.
I think you're right. I was talking about that with someone a few weeks ago on the podcast, that the fact that they went out and got Sam Darnold and it was the first day of free agency and they went and got him, they made it a priority to go get him. I think that says a lot about what they think in Trey Lance and that they want to move on and that Brock Purdy's going to be there. And then they're going to have Sam Darnold and they're comfortable with those two quarterbacks in the room. Did I hear you say that you want Purdy in for CMC or you want Trey Lance in for CMC?
No, I'm saying besides, like, I think regardless of QB, CMC is just as effective.
CMC, okay.
Yeah.
I got you. I think, personally, for me, I agree with, like, he's bulletproof.
Yeah.
But I think Trey Lance makes things a little bit more of a question for CMC. If I don't think it's going to happen, but if Trey Lance somehow gets that starter job and is kind of the guy there, I think it really murkies the water a little bit for CMC, especially with like goal line rushes. And we know that mobile quarterbacks don't check down to running backs nearly as much. And that's where, CMC does most of his work underneath, kind of just get the ball to your best playmaker and let him do his thing.
Yeah.
So, I for this offense as a whole, the hope, like for me, I hope it's Purdy or Sam Darnold as opposed to Trey Lance. And if he gets traded to Atlanta, that'll be a fun talk because that'd be very interesting. And then a pretty big debate that's been going around Twitter. Actually, I've been seeing a ton of it. Ayuk versus Debo, who is the 49ers wide receiver 1. And who are you kind of targeting in this offense?
I think it's Debo. I mean, you're not going to be paying a guy between $25 and $30 million a year for a few years for him not to be the wide receiver number one. I think Ayuk is a very good wide receiver. I don't think he's got the wide receiver one ability. I think the fact that he has the talent around him to kind of get one-on-one coverage and be able to do the things they do is important. I like Ayuk. I think he's a flex player. Debo, they're going to start giving the ball and running the ball again. Probably not as much, but enough to where I realistically think his ceiling is in the top 10.
Yeah. Yeah, we differ on this, man. For me, I would much rather have Brandon Ayuk on my team. I know what Debo did, 2 years ago, and I know that he's a great talent. Like, he's very, very good. But for me, I think Brandon Ayuk, especially with CMC there, I think it takes away most of Debo's like upside rushing ability. That's where he kind of made his big season. Like, his big season was based off of rushing. He had a good receiving year, but it was mostly based off of how good he was rushing the ball, especially with like rushing touchdowns. And I don't think that's going to come with CMC there. And I think Ayuk can take a step forward where I don't think Debo can.
I don't get that. I mean, they were pretty similar points per game last year with them having to change the offense with Jimmy G. Well, not changing the offense, but doing some things different. They got CMC, and Debo played 13 games last year. They value the way they are paying him. They value him as a versatile player. You're not looking as at the Niners. You're like, what is this offense? And it's getting CMC, Kittle, and Debo the ball. And what that does is getting them the ball. It opens up for Ayuk. I mean, what did Debo have 2 years ago as a receiver? Like 1,400 yards. As a non-rusher, he still had 1,300 yards, something like that.
Yeah, it's hard for me to pull up stats while I'm streaming the screen.
Let me see. He had 21. He had 1,400 yards and 6 receiving touchdowns.
Yeah, he had a great season that year. But
so, like, to
every
me, it's
other
like
year,
his rushing ability upside, if he got the 21 touches, is wide receiver one, the best receiver in fantasy, if he got those rushing numbers. The way I look at it is you take those rushing numbers away, most of them, I still think he's a guy who can get 1,400 yards receiving.
Yeah, we differ, man.
We
just differ on. I think there's gonna be those, like, I know he's one of the best in the business at like taking a screen and just going.
He's built. I mean, he is.
But I just don't. It's hard for me to see it. He's had one really good season, one elite season, and then the other three, man, I just don't. Like, he's good, but I just don't know if he can get back to where he was. And I think Ayuk's a lot better than what you kind of give him credit for with what we're talking about right now. I think Ayuk's really good. And I think he could step into the wide receiver one role on this offense if they get into that kind of pocket passing quarterback situation where Ayuk's kind of that lead guy and Debo's the change of pace. Short, and that's how they use him, though. It's like they don't let him run deep downfield. They like everything with Debo's short, quick catches and like let him do his thing, but that can only get you so far. Like if he was doing
it opens up the
go
offense.
Routes and stuff, it does.
In 21, he averaged 18 yards per catch.
In 21, like, he had an amazing season that year. He did, but
I just don't
every other season.
I mean, but if you're looking at every other season, Ayuk's been in the league 3 years?
Yeah. Did they really use him his rookie year though?
He was a disappointment in his rookie year, and then
his issue for me, like, I think Ayuk can be great. It's just for whatever reason it is, he doesn't do anything the first half of the season. Like, if he can put his back half of the season, how he's done it the past 2 years, and do that over a full year, like, we're talking top 15 wide receiver easily.
I think I don't always agree with where the ADPs are, but I agree with the ADP closer to Debo than I do. I'm taking the ADP for Debo than I'm taking the ADP for Brandon Ayuk. I like Brandon Ayuk for what he is. I just don't think there's no chance in my mind that he does better fantasy-wise than Debo this year. No way.
I'll take that bet.
Okay.
Dollar cone.
Huh?
Dollar cone bet.
Dollar cone.
Mark it in the log on the Google Drive.
Yeah.
We got a bet going.
I just don't see Ayuk doing anything better than Debo.
Okay. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm biased against Debo, but I
get it. I get like that with players too. I just
don't. I don't know, man. I'm not in it. And then let's talk a little George Kittle. He was tight end 3 last season, 60 receptions on only 80 targets, but he did have 11 touchdowns, and he really did come on when Brock Purdy came into this offense. That's where he did, the majority, probably 80% of his points. Where do you see George Kittle going this season? And do you see the wheels coming off soon? Because we talk about this every year with Kittle, kind of like, is it coming? Like, is he going to start tapering off? And I'll let you talk and then I'll kind of get into it.
I don't get the discussion of like, is this the year Kittle kind of like falls off? Because Kelsey's what, like 35?
He's the best to ever do it, though.
I mean, arguably him and Gronk, but
Pat's fan.
I think Gronk's like 5 years of playing more than 15 games was the most dominant 5 years of a tight end. Kittle's 29. Kittle's 29. And that
Kittle, the difference, I guess, for me is that Kittle continuously gets hurt. Like, I feel like his body's the body of a 35-year-old and Kelsey's the body of like a 29-year-old.
I think Kittle's the way I look at it is Kittle to me is a top 5 tight end this year. Purdy's going to target him and Debo a ton. That offense runs through
Kelsey's
CMC.
31. There we go.
Kelsey's what?
31.
Kelsey's only 31? I did not know that.
Mm-hmm.
I thought Kelsey, maybe I was thinking of his brother.
Yeah, he's older. Jason.
Yeah.
He's probably 35.
That makes sense. Yeah. No, he's wrong. Travis Kelce is 33 and turns 34 in October.
What is going on? We got
Mario
so many numbers.
just doesn't. Poor guy.
All right, so Kelsey's 33. Is that where we're finally?
Yeah,
right.
Kelsey's
regardless,
33.
He's still.
Kelsey was born in 1989. So
he's a different breed.
Yeah, I'm not saying that, but I'm saying Kittle is in that different breed category. He's a top 5 tight end. If the biggest issue is, does he get hurt and misses games? But the risk reward is, hey, you draft Kittle high, you pay the price for it. Worst case, you get a tight end later in the draft to back him up, because we already know outside of tight end number 7, it's just wishy-washy. 8 through 15 is just so close that you want a top 5 tight end. It's worth it. So you've got to take if you can get Kittle.
He's a tough one for me, man. He always has been, just because he's one of those players that he always ends up in the top 5. But for me, on the outside,
he doesn't miss that many games.
No, he doesn't miss a ton of games, but he's always banged up. He's just always like dealing with something, limping around, but he goes out and plays. For me with Kittle, my main issue, and it just could be me and how I view it, is I feel like he does, like every season, he does the majority of his damage in like three games. He'll win you those weeks. Like, he's going to win you those weeks. But the rest of the time, it's so like wishy-washy. He'll be like the tight end 12, tight end 14 some week. Like, I feel like it's so up and down. And then he'll get you that 40-point game out of nowhere where you're like, oh God, okay.
Yeah, I don't know.
But it's a tight end position. Like,
I'm trying to think. I mean, that makes sense, I guess.
It's tough. Like, I'd rather have someone get me a consistent, like a Dallas Goedert, I feel like is going to consistently put up double-digit points, week in and week
Yeah.
out.
So
As
I think
opposed to Kittle, like I think he'll get you some fives and stuff like
for
that, single
sure
digits,
he'll
and then he'll
probably
get you like a 30.
he'll probably get you like 4 to 6 games in single digits.
You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it's those
But then
weeks are the
he'll
weeks
have,
where you're like,
and then he might have a game where you have 30, 25, 28.
Yep.
So it is like risk, but I mean, it's the tight end position to where it's the same thing with Hawkinson,
Mm-hmm.
and he's going high. Waller, you're praying for him to just not get injured. And then, I mean, the safest bets for me, honestly, probably this year is Kelsey and Andrews.
Okay.
If you're going tight end, if you want safe with the high, like, I mean, obviously they're 1 and 2.
Yeah, I think there's no question about it. I think they're
Right.
1 and 2 easily, and they're going to consistently get you points week in and week out. I have Hawkinson up there this year. I think he's going to be
I like Hawk, but he's inconsistent too.
Category. Yeah. I think this could be the year, though, now that I think he's
sound like
clear.
Everybody who's ever had Hawkinson.
Yeah. No, dude, if you've known and listened to, my takes mostly, but the past years I've been completely out on Hawkinson. I did not want to touch him for anything. And I think him going to the Vikings completely changed the way I view it. Kirk Cousins is for me, a really good quarterback for the tight end position. And I think he's going to be the number 2 option there. Like I like Addison a lot, but you have Hawkinson or a rookie wide receiver.
No, I mean, I like Hawkinson. I think he finishes top 5 this year. I mean, I'm not.
Yeah, I got him in my top 3.
Yeah, I mean, I don't argue that for sure.
Yeah. So Kittle's always another one where I'm like, I don't want to draft him.
I get it.
But let's get into some Rams. We're going to talk some Matthew Stafford. Dabba ranked quarterback 20 right now. Obviously, Stafford's coming off a really tough 2022 season. He only played 9 games, and he wasn't really that good in those games, but he was hurt most of the games that he played. Like, he was just kind of battling injuries the whole season. But let's not forget that he was quarterback 5 in 2021. What are your expectations for Matt Stafford coming back off this injury?
I think he's fine. I don't see him as probably top 10.
Okay.
But I think his ceiling is top 15. He could be outside the top 25. It's like, even with 16 games, it could be bad. We don't really know. Everybody's hopeful. He had spinal fusion and he's got
tough.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. The Rams are going to be very, very interesting because, to be completely honest, I think Stafford does okay. He might be a QB2 conversation in Superflex, and Cooper Kupp is going to be a dog. But I think that team ends up being bad.
It's a likely. I mean, it's tough, man. This team is probably the hardest for me to get a gauge on what I think they're going to do. Because I think this is a team that could realistically make a playoff push, or they could be bottom 5 in the league.
Yeah.
And I don't see, there's not too many teams you can say that with. And I think it hinges on this guy right here. If he can,
and protection.
Yeah, if he can get back to somewhat of his form from 2 seasons ago, there's no reason they can't make a push in the NFC. There's no reason if he's good, because they have weapons.
Kinda.
The defense should be good. It should be good.
They were supposed to be good last year.
Yeah,
and they were bad.
Yeah, it's such a tricky one, man, because what Sean McVay can do, and we'll see.
I mean, you got to think about he was so close to maybe retiring, and they tried to trade Matt Stafford. I think realistically, his top 10 days are done. He's not young. He's had tons of injuries, and he's going to be in the top 5 in the league in picks.
Mm-hmm.
So it's at his best, it's 15 for me. If it were me, I'm not rostering him unless it's super flex and you get him way late.
Yeah, I don't hate that. I don't hate that at all. Speaking of Cooper Kupp, though, you brought him up. He's the dad by ranked wide receiver number 2 right now. Another guy coming off an injury-plagued season. But we do know how great this guy is. Like he's one of the best in the league, no questions about it. My question to you is, are you comfortable taking him in the first round of your startup, like your redraft?
Yes, 100%.
Where do you have him?
Probably 2 or 3.
He's my wide receiver 1 right now.
Yeah. I mean, I think I have, you already know I'm on the Devontae Adams train, for life. I have Cup 4.
Okay.
So, and it's close with him and CD, but I have Cup 4. I mean, if he finished wide receiver 1, am I going to be surprised? No.
Yeah.
I think he's the second best. I think he literally is the second best receiver in football behind Devontae Adams.
Yeah, I don't argue with anything you just said there. And with this guy right here, that he's going to get, like 30% of the target share.
He's going to get 180 targets.
Yeah. He's going to get a ton of targets. And that's, if he can get back, I think he's going to be fine coming off the injury. I think he'll be back to how he was. And if he can get back to just consistent Cooper Kupp, like wide receiver 1 numbers are coming.
For sure. I don't disagree.
Yeah. And then another polarizing guy this offseason, Cam Akers. He's our running back 21 over at the Dad Bod Squad. That's where our consensus rankings has him. He had a really crazy 2022 seasons. Weeks 1 through 11, he was below running back 50. Like he wasn't even rosterable. He wasn't playable. And then weeks 12 through 18, he was running back 5. So this is a guy that, there was so much, they were trying to trade him at the beginning of the season. Nobody wanted him. He wanted out of LA. And then he was coming off that Achilles and stuff like that. And now then he puts that second half of the season together where he was the man on this team. Stafford was gone. Cooper Kupp was out.
Right.
He was the offense, and he was really good when he was the offense. So what are your expectations for him this season?
Low end RB2. And my main thoughts are he was the offense when you had white guys coming from church camp at wide receiver because they had nobody else. I like Cam enough to where I think he's an RB2, but I don't love him. This offense to me, besides Cooper Kupp, I don't want to touch.
Okay.
I just don't know what's going to happen.
No, it's fair.
The line could be trash again. After Whitworth is gone, like they don't have a left tackle really. Like it's going to be it's going to be very interesting. But kind of my thought is that if you can get him as like an RB 25 or as a late second round, like RB2, or not late second round, but like a late RB2 or flex territory, I think he's worth a grab because he could surprise people and end up winning the league for you.
Yeah, he's one of those players. I have him like 21 maybe, but I would not be shocked if at the end of the year he's a running back 1. Like I could for sure see him finishing top 12.
Same thing. So
yeah, he's one.
Could happen.
The back half of the season really like cemented to me that if he gets the opportunity and he's like focused, he can be really good. It's just it's everything's got to come together perfectly for him to get into that spot. And the offense needs to be good. He needs to be put in the position to score touchdowns. There's a lot of things that need to be right for him. Where he's getting drafted, I'm comfortable with him being my RB2. Like I'm fine with that. And I think he's got that upside where he, like you said, he could turn some heads and be a league winner.
For sure.
Like I wouldn't be surprised at all. Time to get into some Seattle Seahawks. A little bit of Geno Smith. He's our QB 14 at the Dad Bod consensus. He kind of came out of nowhere last season. People, if you remember at the beginning of training camp and stuff, people were saying Drew Lock was going to be the starter there. And then that quickly ended when Geno Smith came out and did what he did this season.
Yeah.
He ended the season as QB 5. do you see that as a fluke, or do you see continued success for Geno?
I think he comes back down to earth. Pete Carroll is a great coach. He's a top 5 football coach in the NFL, and he gets
I
the
think he
most out of
cemented that last season.
For sure, 100%. And he does. I mean, Geno's arguably got the best wide receiver core in the NFL. He hits top 3. So I think he'll be solid. I have him. I don't know where I have him. Probably kind of in the middle. I think he is at best low end QB1, kind of middle. QB2. And my thoughts on that are, when people talk about like sophomore slumps with quarterbacks, and obviously Geno's older, he's been in the league for a while, is the slump doesn't happen because QBs just magically become worse from their first year in the NFL to the second year. They get better. The issue is defenses watch a full year of film, and you always see it happen, and it's like watching Cardell Jones in Ohio State, and us being from Ohio State, and me hearing he's going to win a national championship next year. He's the guy. There's no way Barrett's going to take his job. He's going to be a first-round pick in the NFL. And then we know what ended up happening. Teams realized that dude can only throw 60-yard bombs. That's it. There's nothing else he can do. With Geno, I think he's better than that, but I do think defenses will adjust to what he did last year. I do think they run the ball a little bit more this year. But like I said, I think his ceiling could be QB 10, QB 9. I don't see him having a top 5 QB year this year, especially if certain quarterbacks don't get injured.
Yeah, that's the thing for me, is like he was QB 5 because he was just consistently good enough.
Yeah.
Just steady Eddie. And some of those other quarterbacks did get hurt and they missed time, and that's why Geno kind of snuck in there. But the interesting thing is they did go out and get some weapons for him to utilize in this offense. They did not. There were talks that they were going to go draft a QB in the first round, and instead they went and got him a wide receiver. So it seems like they are comfortable with him. I think where we have him ranked, like QB 14, 15, that's where I'm comfortable with him. I think that's right where he should be going, and where he's probably going to finish, like you said, if no one's getting hurt. Probably fantasy points per game for a quarterback. That's kind of where he's going to fall in line. I don't think he's going to win you any week, like a ton of weeks, but I don't think he's going to lose you a ton of weeks. So I think he could be a solid play, like if you need fillers and if somebody gets hurt.
Yeah, I agree.
It's Norton's boy. I wish he was on here to.
He could be a stud. I mean, he looked great last year. He threw touchdowns, but I don't see it this year. I could be wrong. I am half the time.
No, I'm with you. I think he's going to be like a high-end QB2. That's kind of where I got him going. Let's get into some of these positional groups, because that's kind of where everything gets murky.
Right.
Pete Carroll always loves to rain on the fantasy football community. Right when we think we got a bona fide running back one in this offense with Ken Walker, they go out and use high draft capital on Zach Charbonnet. He was the 3rd running back taken in this draft. What are you thinking here? Give me your thoughts on what you think Ken Walker can do, and is Zach Charbonnet, is he going to cut into Ken, and is he going to be, relevant himself?
No, Charbonnet is not. And if you watch college film from Michigan to UCLA, he looked phenomenal. He didn't look bad at Michigan, but last year he would have been their RB3 at Michigan. And that's being 100% honest. He looked worse than Haskins did, or at Michigan. And there's just this hype train around him, and the fact that he got drafted so high. I think he's a serviceable back. I think he's got some solid potential, but he's there for injury reasons. He's there to where when Kenneth Walker possibly asks for a contract extension before his 5th year is exercised, if he decides he wants to hold out, they have Charbonnet for another year. Pete Carroll knows what he's doing, and with that, he knows you can't have one good, healthy running back. You need two. I think Walker's still going to get you 20 touches a game. I think Charbonnet's going to get typical backup touches. He's worth drafting for handcuff purposes, But do I think that Walker is magically just not going to be an RB1 or RB2? No, that's not happening.
Where do you have Ken Walker finishing?
Let's see. I want to say top 10.
Okay.
I have Walker 12. Okay, it makes
12?
sense. A high-end RB2. Yep. I have him as a
Okay.
high-end RB2. I think his ceiling could be RB1, obviously, but I don't see him falling out of RB2 territory.
Yeah, I don't hate it. It's confusing, man. It's confusing, but they do this like. You're right. They like to draft a run. I mean, we've seen this time and time again with, especially with Seattle, where they draft a running back. It looks like he could get some work, but then in reality, he's just there as backup. Like they've done this before, Rashad Penny and that sort of like all that kind of smoke.
I mean, Carson kind of came up like he wasn't a super high draft pick. Rashad Penny was a first round draft pick. The intention was Penny to always get the bulk load of the carries, but he was always injured every single freaking year. With Walker, man, he finished second in the Heisman. Like
it's fair. No, it's fair.
Like
yeah.
Charbonnet is you're the third running back drafted, but it's to me to be completely honest, after Bijan it fell off. Gibbs is solid, and I get why they get it. I still don't think Gibbs is better than Swift, but it's like, do I think this RB class was really deep? I think it was deep enough for what it is, but outside of Robinson and maybe Gibbs, none of these guys, in my opinion, are studs.
Okay. So Alex has some Ken Walker love. I don't hate it, dude. He's one of those players too that's like he could be a league winner or he could kill your team. Like there's a real possibility of both. I know you're off, like you think he's going to get all the work in this backfield.
100%.
I don't know. I think it might be closer to like 65-35, which even if it's 65-35, like
that's
Ken Walker's
still RB1 territory.
I was going to say he's still going to have enough work where he could be a really good back.
I mean, soon, like that. He had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. He had 8 games over 85 yards, and he started in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So 8 out of 11 games he had over 85 yards, and that's just carrying the ball.
No, he's really good.
Yeah,
he's really good.
I like it. I think Walker could end up being like a Josh Jacobs this year, where you're like, holy shit, he's RB1.
Interesting.
He's a stud.
All right. Well, you're gonna love the discount that he's going at then.
For sure, 100%. Everybody should snag him up.
Yeah. Hey, he's an interesting one this year. But let's keep going. Let's keep going on some of these position groups. The same kind of thing that we just talked about. These running backs. We got DK Metcalf. He's our wide receiver 16 over here, and Lockett at wide receiver 30. Again, these two guys have been great for the past couple of years. We think that they're gonna just continue their dominance, and then Pete Carroll comes in and drafts JSN in the first round this season. Do you think either of these two take a hit from JSN coming in, or what are your expectations with the wide receiver core as a whole?
I think Lockett might take a little hit. I don't expect a huge hit. I like JSN. To me, it's still kind of an unknown. This wide receiver class was kind of like outside of JSN, and JSN's 1 year. I mean, it's pretty much what it was that got him where he's at. Is 1 year was with 2 first-round wide receivers ahead of him. So
yeah.
So when
I get what you're saying, like but you could argue that he was the best wide receiver on the field.
I think that was a discussion they had in the second half of the season, but going into the season, Garrett Wilson and Olave were guaranteed first-round draft picks.
Yeah.
They were guaranteed arguably the 2 best receivers in the nation going into on the same team.
Yeah.
To where third receivers, slot receivers, when they have one-on-one coverage with the third DB or safety or linebacker on them, they're going to look a lot better. I think JSN is good, but he's not a burner. He's a bigger dude who runs well and runs through tackles. He's got good hands. I like him. I think he ends up being relevant next year. This year, I think if you see him go over 700 yards receiving, I think that'd be very surprising. Lockett's old. His contract, I think next year they can cut him and they don't have to eat a ton of money. They're paying Lockett a ton of money currently. Like I said, Pete Carroll is smart. He's one out of two coaches in the league who also runs the team as the GM. So he knows, hey, if I can get rid of Lockett, save some money, spend it elsewhere, I'm going to draft a receiver. It's going to be cheaper for me to do it. I'm going to draft a running back just in case anything happens, who's going to be serviceable backup. I like JSN. Dynasty-wise, redraft-wise, I don't think he's going to do enough to be somebody you're going to think about starting unless an injury happens.
Are there any rookie wide receivers that you're in on? Because we see it year after year after year. There's always a top 24 rookie wide receiver.
I think JSN is the best in this class. I don't like the class. I think if there is going to be a wide receiver of this rookie class that kind of sneaks into it, it's probably Addison. Outside, and that's just because of the team he's on. They're going to throw the ball a ridiculous. I mean, I think Kirk Cousins leads the league in passing attempts this year. It could have realistically happened, but outside of that, I don't love the rookie class this year. I really don't.
Okay, yeah, we'll see how it shakes out. I'm curious to see him too. Like this is the wide receiver class of this year. I'm very interested to see who kind of takes a step up.
Right,
so, there's going to be some players, but it's just, this one, especially this season, it's like, I don't know, man. I don't know. Like,
I would
say JSN, no questions, because I truly think he's going to be really good in the NFL.
But he's going to be the third wide receiver. That's what's tough.
Mm-hmm. He's going to be a third wide receiver on this team.
Could it be the same thing that happened at Ohio State, where you have your top two DBs on Lockett and Metcalf, and it opens up a ton of targets for JSN? Yeah, it could. For sure.
They'd have to throw the ball enough.
Yes.
For that.
Yeah, it could happen. I just don't think it does this year.
Yeah, and I agree. I agree. I wish JSN went to Minnesota. Like, if he went to Minnesota.
It blew my mind because, like I said, I don't know how good he will be. I like him enough to where I wish the Patriots would have drafted him.
Yeah.
He's tough. He's a tough ball player.
I think he's going to be really good. But I am a Buckeye, so I could just be kind of wearing my glasses. But let's get into some Cardinals. We kind of talked about Kyler Murray a little bit earlier. He's our QB 24 right now. I have a feeling he's going to kind of sneak up a little bit based off of news reports and stuff coming out. Like we talked in the news where he wants to be ready by week 1. And when I hear that, I don't think he's going to be ready week 1.
No.
But I think he'll be ready within the first month of the season to get on the field. And that will instantly push up my rankings a ton, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I have him based off of playing like 6 to 8 games right now.
That me too. I had him missing 10 weeks.
Yeah. So it's like, everybody, if you're looking at our rankings, you see the slides coming up. Take it with a grain of salt. Has been since being in the league. Yes. Do I think he still ends up being per game top 5 rushing QB? I think that still can happen, but do I think he runs for 1,000 yards? Probably not.
Yeah, I don't either. I think after the ACL stuff, I think he'll kind of, especially this season, it'll taper back to nothing 100%. Too insane. But I'm with you. I think he has all the talent we talked about earlier. He has all the talent to finish top 12 just with his arm. So if he's starting from week 1, he is a massive discount for where you can go get him. And hopefully you guys had some dynasty startups where you could snag him like the 3rd, 4th round. Because that's a huge discount on what he can do.
Yeah. I mean, what did he finish last year? Like QB 19 or something. And that's with him missing, 6 games?
6 or 7 games, yeah.
I think he was on pace to be around 800 yards rushing. I think realistically what you can expect is between 400 and 500 yards rushing. I think that's
where I'm at.
And I think realistically you could get anywhere between 3 and 6 touchdowns. And it would not surprise me if he plays 16 games that he throws over 28 touchdown passes. So he's a stud.
A lot of those touchdowns would have to go this guy right here, Marquise Hollywood Brown, our wide receiver 34 over at the Dad Bod ranks. Hopkins is gone now, so Hollywood is going to be the number one receiver in this offense for the foreseeable future. Do you think he can maintain that true alpha number one receiver in this offense? And are there any other receivers that you're interested in?
I think he'll be fine. I don't love Hollywood Brown, and my bias is he was behind. He had Lamar Jackson throwing him balls for a while, and Lamar. It's kind of hard to judge on how good he is based off of being in an offense that didn't throw enough to him. I think he's good. I think ceiling wise, he's low end wide receiver 1. I think he's realistically a wide receiver 2. I really think Moore takes a jump this year. Just coming out of college, he was so good.
Interesting.
He was so good coming out of college. He's a burner. He's great in the slot. With having both of them healthy, I think it ends up helping Moore out than it does Brown. The sleeper on this team is Wilson.
I agree with that.
The guy that you didn't get to see a ton in college because he was always injured and that offense wasn't really built for him to show off a lot. But if you watch film and see how he catches the ball and what he does with his hands, and he's going to be a red zone target. But I think Moore is a guy that it could be a steal, and Wilson could be the guy that could be the rookie receiver. Honestly, Rob, that could be the rookie receiver that ends up finishing. And it's completely based off nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing besides the fact of outside of Moore and Brown, it's those receivers are all like, hey, I'm short and quick. Or hey, they're kind of limited. They're not when you see
Wilson a lot.
Yeah.
I like Wilson a lot.
Right.
He has it again with like rookies and stuff like that, especially the rookie season. The main thing I look at is one, were you good? And I think Wilson was good. 2, what's your path to consistent targets, consistent target share in an offense? And I think Wilson has every bit of the opportunity to come in and be the wide receiver, the number 2 option in an offense with Kyler Murray passing you the ball. I don't think too many of these receivers have that. Besides Addison, I can't think of an Amingo could come in and be the number 1 there, but you're getting a rookie quarterback throwing you the ball as opposed to one of the best quarterbacks in the league. So that's a big difference.
Yeah.
Do you, off the top of your head, do you know how many weeks Hopkins missed at the beginning? How many weeks
8?
He was suspended? Was it 8?
I think it was 8. Pretty positive it was 8.
Okay. I'm just doing a quick thing here real fast. Dude, Hollywood Brown. So in the first 8 weeks without Hopkins, he was wide receiver 8 in fantasy points per game.
Yeah.
So that's where I am in on Marquise Brown with the discount where he's going ADP. Because he proved when he was kind of the number 1 with Kyler, he could be a wide receiver 1. Now, can he sustain that over a full season? I don't know. We didn't see that. We didn't get a chance to see what it could be. But they did have some they were really good at the first half of the season that without Hopkins there, those two like working together, they had a really good chemistry. And where he's going in drafts, I'm very comfortable taking him as like my wide receiver 3. And I think the upside's there for him to be a top 15 receiver this season.
Right. I think we're currently, and I probably have Brown low currently, and the main reason is I don't know if they end up adding somebody late. There's some guys where it's like they could tinker the wide receiver core. I don't know.
And it's also, is Kyler going to play? Like and there's reports, but we still don't know.
Marquise, and the thing with Marquise Brown is he's little,
Mm-hmm.
and he's not built, and he
It's like
did have
160
some.
pounds.
He had some efficient games, but typically he's usually not catching almost half of those balls getting thrown to him.
Yeah, but can we? I agree with that.
He's going to be the deep threat. He's kind of He's going to be one-dimensional for that
But
team.
there's also I think there's also a factor that we need to look at is where we can say like Marquise Brown with the Ravens, yet he was catching like 60% of the balls and stuff like that. There's a big difference from Lamar throwing him the ball to Kyler.
I mean, he caught like 65% of the balls thrown from Kyler.
Okay, well, in the first half,
and for the entire, I mean, if you're doing,
but
the
he was
season,
at the back half of the year when he was playing. He had Colt McCoy throwing him the ball.
Yeah, but I mean,
you know what I mean? Like, there's a difference there.
I think with Kyler, it's probably gonna be closer to 70%, but I wouldn't expect much. Like
I'm just saying, I think he was used as strictly a deep ball threat in Baltimore.
You can't use him in the middle, dude. He's 160 pounds soaking wet. You got to be careful with it. Like that's
fair.
Thing. Like,
no, it's fair.
Rondé Moore is built more for the short, and I think there's a solid chance that target wise between Moore and Brown aren't going to be much different. Wow, I really don't. The difference is Marquise Brown has more of a boom potential, and I think he gets more touchdowns.
Why was Brown such a bigger part of the offense than Moore was at the beginning part of the season?
Well, I mean, Moore is still kind of figuring out like what his spot was, and Moore had injuries, and I think Brown they traded for.
How old is he? Do you know?
Moore probably 26, 27, probably something like that.
I mean,
the dude's been injured every single year.
How many? I get it, but like, how many years does he need to be in the league before we're just like, all right, this dude's probably just not that good?
Let's see. Oh no, more not 20. He's 23.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, right, he's 23. I don't know. Yeah, he's 23. He's got 2 years in the league, and last year he played 8 games. So
all right, that's fair. That could be a third year for sure. There could be a third year boom.
Yeah. And there was a lot of hype for him coming out of college. He's a burner. I think he ran a 4.3. And he's built more than Marquise Brown is, and he's better in the slot. Now, at the end of the season, near the end of the season, and obviously this is with McCoy at QB, they did start looking at him a little bit more.
Okay.
He looked stronger at the end of the season. I think Marquise Brown's a solid wide receiver too. I think Rondé Moore could end up being a flex guy, and Wilson could be the guy who ends up being the guy. I don't love Brown. I don't hate him. I just can't put a 5'8", 160-pound wide receiver as my wide receiver one. It's just not happening.
No.
He's not Steve Smith.
Yeah. And I don't know if they...
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do.
Like, how often does that happen where you have a guy who's 160 pounds and he ends up being a wide receiver one? It's probably,
I agree, but it just
very
for me,
rare.
For the only thing that I'm gonna like argue, like the only thing I can push back with is we saw it in the first 8 weeks without Nuke. Like when DeAndre Hopkins was not there, he was a wide receiver one.
Came in, and Hollywood Brown went to wide receiver 2.
That's fair. He's an interesting one too, but ADP wise, like where he's going, he's still kind of late, like going later. I love where you can get him. I think
for sure, wide receiver 34.
Yeah, I think it's a ton of upside. It's
100% worth it. I agree.
Speaking of upside, James Conner just kind of keeps doing his thing, keeps on chugging, and the fantasy football community keeps on hating on him. So quick little stat, kind of same thing we talked about with Hollywood right there. But from weeks 9 on last season, when the Cards were a complete dumpster fire, he was RB6 and RB4 in fantasy points per game, which is an interesting stat. And that was without Kyler now. So I don't know if that has too much to do with it or what, but
probably a lot to do with it.
Are you comfortable taking James Conner as your RB2 this season?
Oh, no. And the reason why is they're going to be behind a lot. Probably every single game they're
That's
going to be
fair.
behind.
That's a good point. Yeah.
He did, he obviously gets targets, receptions. It wouldn't surprise me if he had like 60 to 70 catches this year. But he's just not an efficient runner. He's had maybe 3 or 4 games over 5 yards per carry. And they usually were against pretty bad teams. I don't love him. He's never been a big yards per carry guy. He's a big guy. He blocks well. He can catch the ball. It's just the ugliest low-end RB2 you're going to get. And I think where his ADP is,
man.
Yeah, where his ADP is, it's kind of like you're paying for what his ADP is, I guess.
So this isn't ADP. This is just our ranking. I could pull ADP up. I think he's going way later.
Let's see. Best. Well, his ADP is 67, but for best, it's showing 19.
Actually, you know what? It's on our rankings. Hold on.
All right.
Let me pull this up.
I would hate to see
it. Isn't here. I'll keep going. I'll get it.
I just think realistically, his ceiling is RB2, and that's best case scenario. He's not good enough to be an RB1. And
he's going 87. He's going 87. That doesn't give the positional ADP.
If I had to guess, he's probably going
7th round, maybe.
Yeah, I think RB wise, it just depending, probably anywhere between 19 and 30, somewhere in that range is my guess.
Yeah, I'd say that's fair.
I just don't love it, and at some point, you've got to think like, oh, this is going to be the year he finally falls off a cliff, and they give him another running back up. I think he still has RB2 potential because they don't have anybody there.
Yeah, that's the thing. There's just nobody there.
There's nobody there.
The only the thing for me, I'm with you. Like I fade him every season, but it feels like he always outperforms where he gets drafted, and it's ugly and it's not fun to watch or anything like that. But you kind of hit the point that I was going to say. Like he's probably going to get 50 to 60 receptions. And in a PPR format, even if the dude isn't efficient on the ground, if he can get some touchdowns, it's like, but we don't like this offense is probably not going to be great. But if he can get some touchdowns and he's going RB26. Thank you, Albert. I appreciate that.
Yeah. See, that makes sense.
RB26.
It's not a deal. That's the thing. It's like, I think RB26 is where he should go. So for his ADP, am I drafting him at like RB26? It depends on if I went wide receiver heavy and quarterbacks, and I'm left with my RB2 having to be Connor, like I'll probably take him, but I'm not loving it.
Are you taking him or David Montgomery?
David Montgomery all day.
Are you taking him or Rachaad White?
Rachaad White.
Him or James Cook?
Probably James Cook.
You're low on him. Him or AJ Dillon?
Probably James Conner.
Yeah. Yeah. So
That's
I don't know, man.
It's the ugliest.
I don't know.
Dude.
I get it. Because I'm the same way, like mindset wise. I'm like, I don't want this dude. Like he's not gonna do it. But he just consistently will be good. Like if you draft him as your RB3, he's around, he's doing whatever, he's not getting a ton of points, and then back half of the season, the dude's, RB4 in points per game. Like that's something. Like he proved that he can still do it. I don't know.
Yeah.
But a lot of those had to be receptions with Colt McCoy just dunking the ball down to him.
It is. I mean, and it's like James Conner's like it's like looking at a Jackson Pollock painting where you're like, how and why? Like what you know what I'm saying? It's like why is this even a thing? How does this keep happening? How is he still shooting out paint out of his ass on a canvas and calling it art? And
still
then
doing it though.
But he's still doing it, and people are still giving him the attention.
Still giving him the money.
Exactly, still giving him the money, and that's the thing with Connor, where it's like he's not ever looking great. And like for the Cardinals, where it's like you've got a quarterback who's injured, you had a team that struggled offensively, you have a new coach, and you didn't spend any capital on a running back. Like,
bear down, baby.
Like, you should be trying really hard to get Dalvin Cook, even though Dalvin Cook probably doesn't want to be on that sinking ship. But you've got to make moves, man.
I don't think they're playing for this season. They don't want to win. They have they can have 2 top 10 picks next year.
Yeah, that's true.
And then they could, if they had the number 1 overall, they could trade Kyler and reset, get Caleb Williams in there.
Dude, or you if I don't think Caleb Williams is. I think realistically they're going to be in the top 3 drafting, and if they are 1, if Kyler looks good enough and the rest of the team just sucks, I don't think Caleb Williams is where they go. I think they end up getting like 4 or 5 first-round picks for somebody to trade up to get Caleb Williams.
They could, yeah, they could do that. I mean, there's a lot of things that they could do. That's what I'm saying. If they aren't good this year, which is why I'm also a little concerned with Kyler, because I don't think they want to win. So if they don't want to win, they might sit Kyler out way more than they normally would. If they get 2, like you said, man, they could easily have 2 top 3 picks with the Texans and them. If they both suck, which is a high possibility, they could do a ton with those picks. And then if they can decide if they want a quarterback or if they want to keep Kyler, because Kyler's still young, but he's coming off an ACL. I don't know.
It's the only time that's really mattered for quarterbacks is RG3, and that's because his knee was completely destroyed.
That's fair. But I know we said that his arm is still like it's really good.
It's a phenomenal.
He is, a very mobile quarterback.
For sure, and he is undersized. Yeah. It's James.
Like if you could get 2 first-round picks, if you could take Caleb Williams in the first, trade with the first pick, trade Kyler, get 2 first-round picks for Kyler, and then have another first-round pick. Like,
or you could get 3 first-round picks for Caleb Williams.
Yeah,
and I get it.
It just gives them options if they suck.
Yeah, and more than likely they suck. But there's always, hey, remember the Seattle Seahawks were projected to have a top 5 pick last year.
That's fair.
So we'll see what happens. Right. Kyler could be the savior of the universe and come back and have an MVP season. And Hollywood Brown could be a wide receiver 1. James Conner could be our RB1, and just shit goes crazy. It is football. You can never predict. There's always a crappy team that ends up finishing pretty well.
The one thing I'll say, and then we can get out of here, is I think them cutting DeAndre Hopkins says a lot about what they want to do this year. They cut him, ate the cap this season, so they don't have to pay him next year. I think they're playing to lose this year. And if they do that, I don't see them rushing Kyler back first week.
I don't think they rush Kyler back either. I think realistically, if he's ready game 1, he plays game 4 or 5.
I agree.
I think what they're going to see is, in theory, it's kind of like with the Geno and Drew Lock thing, where it's like, hey, you never know. Like, let's see what happens. And if they end up, looking good in the beginning of the season, then we can make moves and rethink the situation. But yeah, I agree. I think they're going into the season thinking they're going to have a top 3 pick, possibly 2 top 10 picks in the draft. But yeah, outside of, to be completely fair, I don't really want anybody besides Kyler on this team.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with Kyler. I probably, unless I can get Kyler super late as a backup QB,
which you probably could.
Probably, depending on how news unfolds with everything. I'm comfortable with Hollywood if Kyler's starting early enough, because I do think that they got a connection. I think that they could be good together.
Yeah.
That's my only caveat on that. But this was a fun episode. I like doing these. I like doing the divisions. They're always fun. You can kind of talk about some players you usually don't get time to talk about when we're doing all these other episodes. If you guys are not following us on all the socials, get there, follow us. We appreciate you. We also have a top 250 coming out with all our rankings on it. It's going to be it's super cool. We've been working a ton on it. It's going to have a bunch of clips and videos, links for you guys to click on. You can go see all our YouTube clips and all our TikTok clips on all the players that we have in the top 250 that we have out right now. And that is coming, I think, pretty soon. We're just about done with that. And it has ADP and all that sort of stuff. So it's pretty cool. It'll be a good resource for you guys. Right now we have our just dad bod rankings up on there. You can go to our Twitter page. It's in our it's either a pinned tweet or right in our bio. So click on that and you can get our just regular dad bod rankings per position. And then the top 250 is coming out relatively soon. So go check that out. Alex, any other thoughts, brother?
No, man. Just everybody have fun trying to figure out this rookie wide receiver class.
It's going to be
let us know your thoughts. Hit us up on Twitter who you're going for in the rookie class. We would love to hear it and discuss it more because it is going to be a topic of discussion at some point.
Yeah, it's going to be this year especially is an outlier where it's like, we don't know, man.
Send us material. We want to hear what your thoughts are.
Let us know, people. The DMs are wide open. For Alex, I'm Rob. Peace.
Thank you for watching our episode. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure you like and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
If you aren't already following us on Twitter, check us out at DadBodFS.
We'll be posting all of our best clips and videos to all of our social media: TikTok, Instagram, Twitch, Facebook, YouTube. You can find us on there at DadBod Fantasy Squad.
Lastly, if you'd rather just listen, we make sure we post our audio of each episode on all the major streaming platforms. Stick with us all season long so together we can count our trophies and not our calories.